Okay, so here's a tomato review on the Placero tomato. Now, this tomato got hit really bad with blight, just like all the other tomatoes I had this year are just getting wiped out completely by the blight, late blight, of course. And so I need to get these reviews done before the tomato completely disappears. And I already removed a couple plants from this already, and it's just going to keep dropping leaves until it's completely gone, and then I'm going to cut the plant down and we'll see if we get some more shoots out of it. But I want to show it to you what it looks like on the plant, you know, the bracts on it. So the bracts will generally produce these little things like this, and they produce them in abundance. They're like a Campari tomato, which a Campari tomato is bigger than a cherry tomato but smaller than a slicer. So it's like a globe tomato, if you want to use that. And it just produces a ton of these tomatoes on here. And they kind of look like little flattened little mini beefsteak tomatoes, more or less. They look like this. Alright, so they kind of look like that. You do get some that look like that. Some of them are great in shape, but I just want to show you the leaf on the plant and it on the plant, and then we'll go over to the bench and taste test it. But I just want to show you the leaf. This one, unfortunately, is getting blight. Here's a good example. It's a regular leaf. This plant can get pretty tall. If you grow it out in your yard and you just let it sprawl, it'll probably grow to 8 to 10 feet tall and just spread along the ground and re-root at every node, which is probably the best thing you'd want to do rather than growing it in pails like I do. But if I had the room, I would be growing tomatoes all over my yard, and I have a very large abundance of letting them grow that way, but I just don't have the room. You can see the leaves are falling off the plant because the blight is really getting in there. But that's what the top of it looks like. And it's a great tomato, so we'll see you at the bench and give it a taste test. Okay, so this is the tomato review part of the Placero tomato. So, as far as I know, this is an indeterminate tomato. It's a Solanum lycopersicum, and it's not really a beefsteak tomato. It's really kind of like a Campari tomato. Campari tomatoes are basically, I'll show you the difference between a Campari tomato and a cherry tomato. Okay, this here, the larger one, is called the Campari. This is called the cherry tomato. And Campari tomato, globe tomato, they kind of go by different names. Depends on, where you're from, I guess. Some people call them globe tomatoes, but the real true name for that variety of tomato is a Campari. So this is more or less like a Campari tomato, but Campari tomatoes, as you can see here, are generally round, like a globe. It's generally like a large cherry tomato is what it is. This is almost the same size as a Campari tomato, except it's not round. It's kind of flat, like a, I don't know, not beefsteak tomato, but like a flat tomato, like a flat slicer tomato. It's kind of like that. All right, it's kind. I grew the homestead tomato before, and this is just like the homestead tomato, little short, little round, little mini pumpkin pepper tomatoes. If you look at it really close, let me grab one, a good example. It kind of looks like a pepper, almost, but it's a tomato. So it's a great little tomato to grow. I didn't do that good this year with it. The late blight came in so hard and so strong, it's literally wiping my tomatoes out very quickly. I'm going to have to trim the tomatoes down at some point and try to get a second crop out of it, and hopefully the blight won't hit it again. But it's been raining so much this year that my tomatoes are splitting. They're getting late blight. Not even the early blight's not even really affecting my tomatoes. It's the late blight that whacked them this year, big time. I can't control it. So unfortunately, this is one of the plants that are really being affected by the late blight. So hopefully I can, get a few more harvests like this. I'm predicting I can get one, maybe two more like this out of it. Probably one, maybe 1.5. I don't think the plant's going to live that much longer unless I chop it down to the ground. and let new shoots come up, and hopefully maybe I can get another harvest. But anyway, let's do a bricks on this. And see what the bricks meter says. Not that juicy. It's almost 7 on a brick. So it's not terribly sweet, but it's not terribly not sweet. It's 7's a pretty good number, believe it or not. Let me show you the inside. That's what it looks like on the inside. I'll give you an example of one of the tomatoes. This is what you should expect to see with your tomato. Should look something like that. It's a nice little tomato. Let me give you a cherry tomato to compare it to. This is like an average size cherry tomato, maybe a little on the larger size. You can see the size difference between the two. And let's give it a taste. Let's see what this tomato tastes like. Right out the gate, way too tangy. I think this tomato plant specifically demands more lime in the soil. It really needs to have that soil sweet. I think I can bring that tangy flavor down, but this year, the tang is like, oh my God. It's probably like 45. I mean, it's incredibly tangy. It's just ridiculous. And the sweetness is probably like maybe a 30. So it's all tang and almost no sweetness. Let me bite this last one here. That thing is so tangy, it was tingling my tongue a little bit. I mean, we're talking tangy here, folks. This is way too tangy for me. Very awkward, tangy flavor. Maybe it was just that tomato. I don't know. You can't see where the insects, there's a, you know, sometimes they bite them and they ruin the flavor of the tomato. Let's give that one a bite. Where are you? The tangy flavor on this thing is just totally, man, it's literally, when I put my tongue on the end of that tomato, it's almost like there's that, I can't even describe it. I can't describe it. It's a weird effect. It's so tangy, it's tingling my tongue. I hope I didn't poison it with that copper sulfide stuff. I don't think I overdid it with that, but wow, that is way too, that's a very fine, I might not want to get any more tomatoes out of this. I'm not too pleased with it, though I am a firm believer that I can develop the flavor better. It's just, this tomato is just, I can't describe that effect when it hits my tongue. It's making my tongue like tingle. That's the only way I can describe it. It's not like a tingly, it's just like, I don't know, take pure battery acid and put it on your tongue and see what that does. That's kind of like what this is doing. It's just the acid's so out of control in this tomato. I'm not even going to eat the other half. I'll put it to this way: between that tangy flavor and effect and that real low sweetness, you can't even really taste the tomato effect. That whatever's in that tomato is just overwhelming in some way. It's just a very unpleasant experience right now. I'll open another one and see if maybe maybe that one's too ripe or something. I don't know. That's a real freaky effect. That's weird. I like to, a lot of times, blame myself for the tomatoes not tasting right. But in reality, it's probably the tomato. I do believe a lot of the times you can develop the flavor of certain tomatoes more by adding more lime to the soil. Basically, the sweeter your soil is, or the higher the pH is in your soil, the sweeter your tomatoes are going to be. The lower the pH is, the tangier and bitter they're going to be. So there's a very good possibility there just simply wasn't enough lime in that pot for that tomato, and the flavor of it just didn't develop correctly. So I'm going to give it that. We'll grow this out next year we'll see if I can just dump a whole load of lime in there and just get this tomato up to par. But as of right now, I wouldn't even recommend this tomato. Though you can try it and see if it just grows and tastes better in your garden. It probably will. Could just be that one pail got totally washed out of all the nutrients and the flavor just really dropped on it. I can't even really give you a solid review on it because that tingling effect on my tongue is really bizarre. I don't know what to say about that. I don't know. It's just a strange effect. I've never had tomatoes actually do that to me, but I don't feel sick or anything. It's just really tangy. I mean, tanger. It's not like a lemon kind of a tang. It's just a real deep, its own kind of tang. It's just, I don't know. I don't know what to say. That's the Placero tomato. So, I mean, you want to give it a go, you give it a go. I'll offer seeds on my website, but don't yell at me if you don't like the tangy flavor of this thing. I don't know. Just, if you do grow this tomato, make sure you add a ton of lime to it so you at least get some sweetness out of it and lower that acidity level. It just could be that it's been raining so much that it washed all the lime out of the soil and rock dust and stuff. I mean, that's the only thing I could think of at this point is why some of these tomatoes are just really giving me a hard time. But, that's your review for the Placero tomato. Like, share, and subscribe, and I will see you on the next one.